What's going on, guys? It's Genghis Crown, and today I'm going to be doing another First Impressions Alpha video of a title called Warhammer 40,000 Eternal Crusade. There's been a ton of speculation about this game and whether it will match the hype or if it will fall flat like so many other Warhammer and 40k titles have done before it. That is, besides the new Total War, Dawn of War series, and Space Marine. This title is a third-person shooter set in Game Workshop's incredibly popular Warhammer 40,000 universe, so it's very mature and very dark sci-fi lore and visuals. The title is being developed by Behavior Interactive, located out of Montreal, Canada, and I've been following the development of this game and picked up a Founders Pack about 2 years ago once it was fully announced and the store online was available. A large portion of the beginning of Alpha was tapering off of expectations and features, and what do I mean by this? Well, early on, the Behavior team, before it was available to a wider Alpha audience, was given a newer, scaled-down version of the vision for what the shooter and MMO aspects would be. They started out wanting a large, PlanetSide 2 seamless approach to the territory and hex system where it was actively changing and would ultimately be a large open world. Well, the Unreal Engine and the tech that Behavior was using, and is using, is more suited to a Battlefield-style match-based system, and this setup reminds me more of what Global Agenda had going on for it with the Endgame and Alliance vs. Alliance, if anyone remembers that game. Rest in peace. That's not to say that the hex system was left to the wayside, just that territory and rewards for gaining ground and holding these hexes is determined from matches or battles that will have multiple instances occurring simultaneously. The match then changes to display this in real time and displays gains and losses for those folks hopping in and deciding where to deploy with their squad. And this is a decent segue to discuss an elephant in the room, which is a big point of controversy and weight that rides on Behavior's shoulders, which is the fact that within the 40k community is that there just can't seem to be a really good Warhammer 40k video game made that, one, resembles anything close to the tabletop game, and two, is actually decent and fun to play. Of course, this excludes the Dawn of War series, as those are phenomenal and very well done for an RTS game, and a close call for the action-adventure shooter-type games that would most likely be recently released, such as Space Marine a few years ago, and has been used in large part as a working baseline of what Eternal Crusade, moment to moment, will play like. Another title set in the 40k universe coming relatively soon with a lot of hype swirling around it is the first-person team-based shooter a la Left 4 Dead called Space Hulk, which is incredibly exciting looking and definitely on my watch list, and I'll provide a link for that in the description. So, on to the impressions and discussions about Eternal Crusade. The UI and menus are fairly simplistic, orange in design, which is good given that a lot of folks want to hop in and hop out and understand the landscape of the battles occurring and which to reinforce and how to support their faction as best as possible. There are a few classes which are backed up by a loadout system, and the UI in those menus are great and understandable. Again, a feature that I'm glad Behavior is consistently working on patch to patch to make it easier and better to understand with each update since I've started Alpha, probably about 5 or 6 patches ago. In terms of the map system, the battles are fairly varied right now with the 4 major factions implemented into the game, and so the battles seem to be mostly similar to a lobby shooter between 2 factions, which the devs will continue to add in that displayed bonuses and interconnectivity between the guys on the ground and those playing an almost RTS version of Eternal Crusade like a commander or squad leader from above. It's still a fairly rough alpha, and they are still first and foremost trying to hone in on the moment-to-moment gameplay, gunplay, and loadout balance, as well as interesting yet not too complex map design, which is all understandable since the game needs those in order to function at a much higher level than when we get into the mystical realm of meta. Just like the tabletop, the game will have several factions vying for territory and duking it out on Arcana, the devs' planet of choice. Within these, there are several chapters or sub-factions that represent even deeper ideals and personality types, which is a really cool lore-building feature in my opinion. For instance, the Space Marines have Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and Imperial Fist chapters. But so far in Eternal Crusade, the main factions available are the Space Marines, the Chaos Space Marines, Orks, Eldar, and the NPCs or AIs, which are Tyranids. I'd love to get into the lore of all these, but that's an entire another video series, let alone a single video. Overall, they have similar feels to the movement, with Eldar being slightly quicker and more agile. The biggest difference naturally happens to be weapons and loadouts and the gear that's available within each faction. The Orks originally were intended to be the Zerg faction, where all free-to-play players would be able to start playing the game only as the Orks and could potentially overwhelm any opposing faction given enough free players and their will to dominate. However, with recent changes, the devs have said that the factions will all be available and that free-to-play players will have other limitations, which I think is a smart move given the dedicated community involved with the development of this game, and would give free players even more incentives to get themselves involved and then subsequently purchase an actual copy of the game without the devs putting billboards in their game saying, "Buy our game for more fun," but instead helping people experience the game and allowing the content to speak for itself is a +1 in my book. I lean towards the Chaos Space Marines as they have a similar mindset to my own, and I like to RP, so there you go. Overall, every faction has a heavier weight-based movement system, much more so than many other shooters out right now where movement abilities, speed, and cooldown are the name of the game. There's definitely a decently high skill curve for the projectile weapons, needing highly controlled bursting, situational use, ammo counting, and weapon switching therein. I'm glad that this is the case though, and that many of the guns are not just cone of fire or bullet hoses. There are plenty of fully automatic weapons in the game, but firing these at a high rate will definitely get you killed in heavier firefights, and the spread will be unreal, with diminishing returns on accuracy, and you'll have to let the gun cool down and rest before being very effective again. And I like this, but I've gotten so programmed by many other shooters with cone and bullet hosing shooting that this was a little jarring at first, especially with the movement and the heavy feeling that you get when you're playing. After a few matches, I became much better and realized that this is a team or squad-based shooter, not a run-and-gun, spray-and-pray, solo-kill kind of game. The loadout system is very cool, very modern and familiar, as it's basically a weight system where each piece of gear has a particular weight or energy consumption and forces you into compromising certain aspects, so you can't just run around with the heaviest armor and still utilize all the equipment given to do the most damage. I think that in the long run, this will create a better balance once they get more gear involved in the game and can easily tweak it to fit into the class meta instead of worrying about a specialization system with points or respecs and such from a traditional MMO standpoint. I will say that I personally did not enjoy the assault jetpacking classes with the faster sword slashes. This seemed to be a little unbalanced in 1v1s, and I would get beaten down much faster than a counter was seemingly capable of, but I might have just been doing something wrong, I don't know. Anyways, the gunplay and moment-to-moment gameplay is incredibly exciting once you actually get into the firefights. The friendly fire aspects are awesome and really reinforce a more realistic mindset going into battles, and the factions all feel at least relatively unique, and I'm confident all of these will continue to have more variety as time goes on throughout Alpha and Steam Early Access. However, in terms of an MMO and those parts of the game, they are still very surface level, and that's okay. If the baseline is good, things will continue to deepen if the devs truly care about their community, which they seem to at least partially. The players are looking for an actually strategic overhead display of territory and a good map design that allows for intense, meaningful fights with lots of utilities for guiding players and increasing commander presence and help newer folks help in meaningful ways, which over the past few alpha patches, these concepts are being noted and improved on clearly every time. The newest addition to the game is the Orks, Eldar, and the Tyranid instances. The Eldar have mostly energy weapons, and I hadn't really gotten a chance to fight against these guys too often as of yet, and I don't really plan on playing them myself. The Orks definitely do have a more Zerg-like mindset and can easily overwhelm a point and spread out and isolate Marines and Eldar to beat and shoot them down. I do have friends that plan on playing these different factions, and I'll see them on the battlefield and lay them out accordingly for the chaos. That said, you do have 4 character slots as of right now, so you can easily experience each of the factions' weapons and equipment and mobility to determine which side you truly wish to fight for in the end. The Tyranid edition is a particularly exciting portion, as this is a major step in content for the mystical meta I was talking about earlier. These instances are Tyranid versus a squad in your faction to give your faction a bonus to a particular aspect of fighting. I'm not 100% sure on what these bonuses will be, and I'm sure the devs aren't even 100% exactly what they'll be, but them adding in the Tyranid is a fun and exciting piece of content, and I love the look and feel of these instances, as they reminded me of the old Global Agenda Ultramax dungeons for crafting resources. There are normal and hard modes to these instances, and award XP at the end, as well as stats from the duration of the instance. This is good for both newer players to get used to and experiment with loadouts and classes, and allow newer folks to figure out the synergy between teammates and classes before stepping onto the important territory battlefield and potentially hindering allies. And as I mentioned, you could even help boost your faction as a result of completing these instances come launch, and potentially help their teammates that are actually fighting the war on the main maps. In general, the game is moving in a great direction. I've been keeping up and reading the newsletters and game updates, and periodically hop back in once a big content update approaches, and then after the patch I decide to play for a while, much like this Tyranid Orks Eldar Maps edition. And I've been meaning to get more involved with the community and guilds or clans or army or whatever the hell they're called in Eternal Crusade, and really work on getting some more time with a coordinated team. But right now I'm content with letting the game bake in the oven for a little longer before diving headlong into the game and really dedicating some mean time to it. Simply because I know that once I do, I'm going to be very invested in this game, and I want to let that magic wear off organically when the game is in a more complete state. If you're into the Warhammer 40k universe and looking for a cool early access title to ramble around in and shoot some skulls, then by all means please support this game. It's a great group of devs behind it, and they really do want to do the series justice by bringing us an MMO hybrid multiplayer game, and they are definitely on track to do so. The entry price is $40 on Steam to start playing now, and I'm not sure if on the website directly from the devs that you can buy a cheaper copy, and I'm sure you can. So go and grab a copy and docker your way to victory, and may we both hope that we don't meet on the battlefield. Now I'm going to leave you guys with a little bit of raw gameplay action and shut the hell up, and as always, thanks for checking out my content, and if you enjoyed it, make sure to hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and remember to share with your friends in the Eternal Crusade community. Until next time, see you around.
Gilliman, attack! Focus assault at chosen location! execute the Emperor's will! All shall fear the Adeptus Astartes! You will live, now move! Thank you, brother! Let them fear the wrath of the Space Marines! We shall cleanse this world of Xenos filth!